Chris about here. Hopefully this doesn't knock the camera over as I maneuver back.
It probably will, and that would be funny. We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
I just knocked the whole tarp down.
I feel like the next two topics are going to be very contentious because we're doing gaining weight today, and next week is losing weight.
I
feel like these are very contentious topics that we're going to be hitting here.
Yeah, I would say important. I think for the majority of the population, a lot of people still can't grasp those specific, concepts of losing weight. Gaining weight is the more, I guess, a lot of people are like, duh, you just eat food, but, depending,
right.
We'll get into more specifics.
But even then, that. Right, it's not that simple. It's not just, eat more.
Right.
It
could be, I guess.
It could
how
be.
You break it down.
Right. but there's a healthy way to gain weight. There's a healthy way to lose weight. Right. There are other things to consider. Why you're doing it, what's your starting point. If you're trying to gain weight and you're an untrained individual, it's different from gaining weight when you're a trained individual versus, let's say, you're coming back from some sort of treatment. So this is a preview of what's going to be happening. So I'll just skip this now. Do you think people will be mad at us?
It's what, 11:59?
It's 11:59 in a couple of seconds. I actually have like a full time on my watch here if you really want to start exactly.
Down to the nano, huh? Okay.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah, we can do that.
I think this is the episode that's really gonna anger a lot of people. Well, it's gonna be next
controversy.
It's gonna be the next episode that really angers people. Cause
weight loss.
I have some thoughts on weight loss.
You've had experience with weight loss, so
weight gain.
You're gonna have a lot of. That might be a whole hour of
7, 6,
of a topic.
5, 4,
3,
2,
2, 1.
Banana.
Happy New Year.
Bros and brolettes,
Vikings and Valkyries.
Welcome to Iron Theory.
I'm Chris.
I'm Arthur.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, Chris, you missed the last part. A podcast about fitness,
shit.
life.
Whatever, man. It's not gonna be perfect every time. Fuck. Shit. I just want to talk.
Forget
all the, introductions.
Well.
Fuck, I did mess that one up. Whatever. It's okay.
Just another day. It's a new podcast. We're still learning.
Yeah. Whatever. It's all good.
What is our topic today, Chris?
Weight gain. So we're gaining weight today.
Why?
That's a good question. Why do people want to gain weight? It could be medical reasons, it could be aesthetic purposes, it could be performance reasons, all the above. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna kind of cover. Me specifically, I guess the weight I'm more concerned about is muscle mass. So that's the weight I'm concerned about, and we'll kind of dabble into that, explain kind of how that kind of goes if somebody's interested in doing that. Yeah.
So let's actually start with that because I'm definitely more interested in losing weight, and I'm in a unique position where because I have quite a bit of fat mass, I get to do the mythical body recomposition, right? This gaining muscle mass on a calorie deficit. That's something that is possible for people in my position, but you don't have enough fat mass to actually do a body recomp. So let's talk about you, Chris. Let's look at your weight gain journey. Tell us about what has helped you. Perhaps let's talk about what challenges you face, and let's see if we can work this out scientifically here.
Okay. Well, as anybody in starting their fitness journey, they start to pretty much start grasping everywhere. You feel like, oh, I got to get information quickly, and I need it now. I need to figure it out. So whatever made sense at the time is like, okay, it sounds like a majority of people, agreed with this specific thing, and I was gonna hold on to it. So the idea of eating big to get big, right? So you have to eat more to gain, more, as in muscle mass, or what I thought was muscle mass. But the problem is, as you go through that trial and error, and and you're really focused on, really at that point, your training might not be correct, right? So your training. Sorry, we're adjusting seats. So just figuring out, the training regimen. What are you supposed to be doing with that? And then, of course, the food, which is what we're going to talk about right now. I just thought you just had to eat, just a lot of food, whatever it was. I didn't understand macronutrients. I didn't understand the necessities as much. Like, I knew protein is something you needed to build muscle. So, but then the knowledge of understanding the types of foods that offer protein, and then the caloric part, which was actually the thing I think most people just don't understand, the laws of thermodynamics, which we will go over. So yeah, I mean, there was a point where I just ate whatever the fuck I wanted, pretty much anything. I thought, as this young kid in the gym trying to just put on muscle, it's just like, yeah, whatever, eat whatever I want. I can eat out fast food, I can drink beer, I can do all these things. I just have to lift weights, and that's how I'm going to get big. But there's this false reality with that, is that, okay, I step on the scale is moving, but, how much of that is actually muscle? And that's, I guess, the thing.
So I guess here's my question. With doing what you did early on, right? Yeah. So eat big, get big. Mm-hmm. I think that would be a dirty bulk.
Of a sort.
And we can,
I think that's what people would classify it as.
And we can discuss the difference between a dirty bulk and a clean bulk a little bit later. But did you gain weight?
Definitely gained weight. Yeah, definitely gained weight, because what do you need to gain weight? A surplus of calories, right? So my activity level at the time, plus, eating a certain amount of calories, so I was in a surplus, that I was eating more than my body needed to maintain its current weight. I gained weight, right? So yeah, so that definitely happened,
So we can get into the science of that now, if you'd like.
I think that's what people are interested in.
I think that's what people are interested in.
Yes.
So, as your resident science man, I spent the week reading through a bunch of different journal articles about this, and I narrowed it down to 2 or 3. And the reason why I went with these 3 articles is because virtually every other article about gaining weight, training on a calorie surplus or a deficit or anything like that, cited these articles. So it seems as though all the researchers within exercise science and nutrition end up citing these papers quite often. So the 2 we got one paper that is published in Frontiers in Nutrition that is looking at what is the actual benefit of an energy surplus to maximize skeletal muscle hypertrophy. So skeletal muscle is the muscle that we actually care about, the biceps, triceps, right? It doesn't include stuff like the heart or other muscular systems.
Right.
And then there is another paper that I found, and that's the effects of overfeeding on body composition. And it looks at the macronutrient composition of food. So whereas it's not really looking just at calorie value, it's also looking at the grams of protein that each diet gets you.
Right.
So let's look over the full actual results of these studies. The more you eat, the more weight you gain.
Correct. I think that is a conclusion, right?
Yeah.
That is the conclusion.
But right now, in terms of studies that are overfeeding, so I guess that's the term that the actual exercise science uses. Overfeeding means eating on a calorie surplus. The things they measured were fat mass and fat-free mass. So how much of the mass you gained was fat and how much of the mass you gained was not fat. Does that necessarily imply muscle? No, but whatever. Okay.
Water.
Yeah, water mass, whatever. So I want to bring your attention to one particular study that I found really entertaining. And this was done by an author, Spillane et al. That means all the other authors involved, in 2016. So this is a relatively recent study. And I found this one to be relatively interesting. So this study looked at a very big caloric surplus.
Okay.
So the people in this study, and there were 11 participants in a high protein group and 10 participants in a low protein group. Now, science people aside, I do understand that that's a very low sample size with very few degrees of freedom.
Yeah.
However, you have to understand that in nutrition science and exercise science, that's actually a relatively stable sample size because it's very difficult to do these studies. So let's keep in mind these results in the context of a relatively small sample size, right, in a field that is notoriously difficult to study.
Yeah.
So all your skepticism radar should be going off.
Right.
But this study was done quite well. So this study looked at 20 total participants, right? And all of them had a calorie surplus of 1,250 calories. So what do I mean by calorie surplus? That means they looked at how many calories they burned, and they made sure that they were eating 1,250 calories above what they burned.
Right.
So at any given day, 1,250 calories went unburned. And they put these participants into two different groups. One group had 2.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Now, for those of you who are not in the metric system, that's 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which is relatively standard when we're talking about muscle building.
It's something that's kind of been tossed around in the fitness community was that idea, and I guess that could be back to that encyclopedia bodybuilding that Arnold would talk about. So that just kind of circulated into like the mainstream, I guess, and that's the golden rule is 1 gram per pound of body weight at least. So
yeah, so that's pretty standard. Another group was also fed 1,250 calories above their daily need or above what they burned every day, so they were in a surplus. But they were only given 1 kilogram of protein. 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So that's a little less than half a gram per pound of body weight. Now, both groups were on a resistance training regimen, so both of them were on the same training regimen.
Okay, so it wasn't like it varied.
No, and the study period was 8 weeks. At the end of 8 weeks, the people who had the high protein version of the diet, so the 1 gram per pound of body weight, gained 2.3 pounds of fat-free muscle mass.
Which is pretty good.
About 1.5 pounds of fat mass. So they gained almost double the fat-free muscle mass. They gained almost double
which is
the
good
muscle.
gains. Like that'd be pretty good gains, I would say, for somebody who. And were these individuals, do we know if they were on performance-enhancing drugs, or were they...
No, so these individuals were not on performance-enhancing drugs, but the study did note that these were moderate athletes. So these are people who, they weren't untrained, but they also weren't, like, competitive athletes.
Tip-top, yeah. Best of the best kind
so
of thing.
Actually, this study would be, well, what most of us are.
Right. Yeah. So, that's very relevant, especially to us and then whoever might be watching, because that's a pretty attainable level, I would say. Then, and that's a good proof for that,
But here's the fun part.
I like fun.
I think here is where eat big, get big comes with the nuance
right
of what it is you're eating.
Right.
Participants who had a calorie surplus of 1,250 calories, but only had 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. So for the Americans amongst you, that's half a gram of protein per pound of body weight. They ended up gaining 1.3 pounds of fat, but only 0.2 grams of muscle.
Now, and those individuals had the exact same resistance training.
Exact same resistance training. Everything was the same.
Okay. So, yeah. So I guess the rule is 1 gram at least. But then I feel like because those individuals are not carbon copies of each other, so their approach to that resistance training program. One person might have been training with maybe a bit more intensity, so they might have been doing the exact same exercises, but execution might have been different. So I would feel like that's a variable that could also add to their stimulation of their muscle, right? So
You're right. So, in general, one of the problems with doing studies on exercise physiology and nutrition is just the overall differences amongst everybody. I mean, you can try to do a representative sample of people, right? But even then, how insulin sensitive you are, how much insulin your body produces, how quickly your body responds to training, how quickly your cortisol levels spike during or after a workout,
right.
How much sleep you get. You can't control for all of these. I have yet to see a study that actually truly managed to account for every possible variable. It's just
difficult. It's just really difficult, and funding and all that, and time, and it's a really difficult thing to do to have a study like that. But nonetheless, I think it's very interesting. So kind of bouncing back to what I was doing and what I feel like a lot of people are doing when they decide to put on muscle mass, the eat big get big. I think it comes down to nutrition knowledge, like understanding at least the fundamentals of nutrition, to know the stuff that you should stay away from and stuff that you should have more of in a diet. So essentially having balance in those meals that you are intaking, right? So, and I think that's where it would optimize those individuals who are looking to build muscle and not necessarily just a bunch of fat. Just eat whatever you want, right? So, it's an interesting thing.
So we have this idea that getting the correct amount of protein is ideal, right? And I think here is where bro science tends to come in. Even if you understand this idea that macros matter, and protein, if you're trying to induce skeletal muscle hypertrophy, right? So the big fancy science term for like getting jacked, dude.
Jacked, brah.
Jacked, bruh. If you are trying to encourage muscle growth, more protein seems to be the rule.
Yeah, so as far as on the nutritional side, protein, at least go for that 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's a good number to attain. And it's actually a lot of what I'll find with like certain clients, just to kind of get some more real life in here, is that people think that it's difficult to get a certain amount of protein in their diet, and it really isn't, especially if you understand the portion size of let's say, for instance, a piece of chicken or whatever protein source you want. It's surprisingly a lot of protein, even like a 5-ounce piece of chicken, which is like like that big,
20 grams in there.
Yeah, so I mean that's one meal, and then there's supplementation, of course. So I mean it's actually fairly easy to do. Especially like for the more small petite clients, female clients that are 120 pounds or whatever, and they want to put muscle on. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, and that's like 2 chicken titties and you're set.
Done.
All right, so, but here is where the bro science starts to collide.
Yes.
There is a diminishing return on the protein. If you go above 1 gram per pound of body weight of protein intake, so if you go above this 1 gram per pound, the research shows there is no benefit in gaining muscle mass if you go above 1 gram per pound. Now, that is a little different if you are untrained. So let's say you're a newbie in the gym.
Right.
You can benefit from more than 1 gram per pound of body weight if you're fresh.
I feel like in that instance, I would say that their body's pretty much going to be shocked, I think, from just lifting weights at that point, and that's what's really kind of driving their muscle growth.
And you're correct. So a lot of this that I'm going to say now applies to people who have been training for like at least a year. So
right.
you've maxed out your newbie gains, right? Yep. You've already done your central nervous system stimulation and the benefits of that. So this does not go for the newbie gainers.
Yeah.
This goes for the slightly more advanced of us. 1 gram per pound of body weight, going above that provides no actual benefit. And here's why. Protein, the breaking down of protein and then later using those amino acids for protein synthesis, so actually building the proteins in your muscle, is an incredibly energy intensive and incredibly long, slow process.
Right.
Right now, as you're doing protein synthesis, so the actual protein synthesis in a trained individual, so somebody who does consistently work out, that's about 20% of your resting calories. So the actual breaking down and synthesis of proteins in your body accounts for 20% of your resting calorie use. So when you're just laying there on the couch doing nothing, and you're an individual who trains on the regular, 20% of your calories go into repairing your muscle tissue. The problem is that's a very slow process. So if your body ends up getting more protein than it can break down, well, now you're just building up the amino acids in your system, and you are also inducing muscle oxidation, which can lead to muscle loss.
Right.
Not to mention the additional effects. If you eat more protein than your body can handle, you actually start experiencing some negative side effects. You start experiencing issues with your renal system, your liver, your kidneys. So, bros and brolettes out there.
Vikings and Valkyries,
Vikings and Valkyries. Unless you are on performance-enhancing drugs, which speed up the rate of muscle recovery.
Correct.
And you are actively, artificially doing stuff to your system. There is no benefit to eating more than 1 gram per pound of body weight. And if you are, you might actually be doing more harm than that.
So, and then if anything, it does make it easier to consume, more closer to your body weight than trying to just max out on as much protein as you can in a day, because that in itself can be a chore, trying to just have let's say you're 170 some pounds and you have 300 grams of protein in your day. That's way too much, right? We just mentioned that. So ease up a little bit, and then just focus on having more carbohydrates in your foods for energy, right? Because that's also important for muscle building. You need energy to build that muscle and have that resistance training in the gym. So
yeah, and that's part of why I want to kind of introduce this idea of what is the difference of eating to train and eating to gain.
Yes.
If you're eating to train, you're eating enough calories to power your workout.
Exactly.
If you're eating to gain, you're eating enough calories to then actually maximize your muscle growth.
Right.
You have to be careful with that because you need enough calories. So I'm not talking about just protein intake. I'm not talking about grams of protein. You need enough calories in your body if you're trying to gain weight, and this is why this 1,250 above resting, above burn seems to be a study that I kind of was entertained by. You have to make sure you have enough calories to A, power your workout, and then B, actually power the protein synthesis,
right.
The actual breaking down of protein and rebuilding of protein.
So I'd say essentially you don't want to starve yourself, but you also do not want to you don't want to overeat as well, because then you will gain unnecessary body fat that you're probably not looking for, and then it gives you this illusion of you're bigger or whatever. You'll be stronger, and you're stronger in the gym. You have that now this lasting energy to push through maybe heavier lifts and stuff like that. But eat in moderation, I guess, is the conclusion of that, I would say.
And if you're really serious about it, if you're really, really into it, get a nutritionist or get a coach who will calculate out. They'll make a meal plan for you. I know it can get expensive, but
yeah, I would say if you want to eat healthy, it's honestly pretty cheap. I think a lot of people underestimate how cheap it is to eat healthy. Now is that sustainable for the average person? As somebody who can eat in a very more restrictive way, is that something a person can do for a long time? Maybe not, but
chicken, rice, broccoli.
Yeah,
chicken, rice, broccoli.
Like chicken, rice, broccoli, like most people cannot do that. I guarantee that. So, and then for that average person, I would say just comes down to understanding just the laws of thermodynamics, calories in, calories out. Stay active. Don't overeat. Stay in a caloric deficit, not to the point where you're starving and have no energy and you feel like shit, but don't overeat. Put the fork down,
Yep.
pretty much.
So, first law of thermodynamics is that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be converted.
Right.
So the
Stored
energy
energy.
that your body uses, well, where does that energy come from?
The energy that we use, from food, right?
From food. Yeah. So what we're doing when we're actually lifting, right, is we're in our bodies, the chemical energy of food is being converted into, well, the kinetic energy of motion inside the muscle fibers and myoactin and all that other weird
Right.
stuff. But the second law of thermodynamics is where it gets a little entertaining.
Yes.
And this is partially why you need to eat so many calories to gain weight or to actually gain muscle mass. So the second law of thermodynamics is entropy. And in so few words, it says that no conversion of energy is going to be particularly efficient. When you start working out, Chris, so when you start converting food energy into kinetic energy, what starts happening in your body? Like the moment you hit the gym and you start moving, what do you notice happens?
You start getting warm, right? Blood circulation, you start sweating.
Yeah. You start getting warm. That heat is excess energy.
Right.
That heat is the byproduct. When you're converting chemical energy into kinetic energy and your ATP is causing your fibers to start moving around, that energy conversion is not totally efficient. So you're losing quite a bit of energy to heat, which is why when you're exercising, you eat so much. It's not just that it's 100 calories of food ends up being 100 calories worth of energy you get to output. Energy is lost in those conversions, so you end up really needing to eat. But whatever. Why? Why do people want to gain weight, Chris?
It depends on an individual, right? So, for me, I want to put on muscle mass for aesthetic reasons. So that would be my reasoning for gaining weight in my person. I wouldn't say I'm underweight or anything. I would say I'm at a healthy weight, right? I would say I'm at that above average level. So for me, it's just it's putting on that muscle mass for the aesthetics and for all that, and just to kind of push my body and see how far I can take it in this natural state. It gives me a challenge for myself. That's what I look at it as.
Yeah, absolutely. Gaining weight can help build muscle mass, and it can really get you there. And then there are the athletes who want to gain weight outside of aesthetic.
Yeah, so like when we say, for me, that's more of a bodybuilding trope. Somebody wanted to put muscle mass, specifically, not even just talking general weight, so that could include body fat, muscle mass, and all that. But for specific, let's say, sport, right? Boxers, combat sports, they have to make a certain weight class, right? They might have to gain the weight because they were a little too small, and they have to hit a certain number to make that weight class, right? So they have to do certain things to get there.
Yeah. In my corner of the world, so when we're talking about strength sports, strongman, powerlifting, right? It's a little different in Olympic weightlifting, but I don't know much about that. But strongman and powerlifting, you'll see very steep weight gains and weight cuts. But let's just get into the basics of it. Mass moves mass.
Right.
The heavier you are, the more weight you can move. And sometimes there's a joke of like the open class powerlifters or the open class strongmans, right? So you're above a certain body weight, your body weight no longer matters, and they just look fat. Like if you just keep the muscle and lose all the fat, you'll be just as strong.
I would say
No.
even that person
No.
who's 300 pounds of muscle mass, I would say say they're they're medically obese. I guess that's
Right.
one.
Well, and we'll talk about that next episode when we talk about gaining weight.
Sure.
That BMI is BMI, and if you're overweight because of fat or you're overweight because of muscle, the impact on your joints, the impact on your cardiovascular system is more or less indistinguishable, right? Your joints don't care if it's fat or muscle, but that's a topic for later.
Right.
Mass moves mass. And these powerlifters, if they lose that fat mass but maintain all their muscle mass, they will not be as strong. Because that fat, well, A, it protects your joints. So that's why strength athletes tend to be a little bit chubbier.
Cushion.
It's cushion for the joints, and it's just leverage. If you weigh 400 pounds, moving a deadlift bar off the floor, when you get to put more weight behind you, it's a sport of leverages. It just becomes easier. Whether it's all muscle mass or all fat mass, the heavier you are, the easier it is to move that weight.
It's true.
So that's why you'll see Brian Shaw weigh 400 pounds. That's why you'll see Hafthor Bjornsson weigh 300-something pounds. It's not that they can't lose the weight and be just virtually all muscle. Literally, it's a competitive advantage in strength sports to weigh as much as you possibly can.
And I think, that's why they put, strongman also has weight classes, right? Or do they not?
Strongman has weight classes, but, the strongman you see on TV, right?
Right.
It's the world's strongest man, Giants Live.
The biggest dudes.
That's an open weight class. So
anybody, I guess, can technically, even some beanpole man that shows up, he's like, I'm about to lift these weights too.
Well, a lot of those are invitational. Or they have qualifiers and invitational, so I don't think so.
But powerlifting, though, is like, here's weight class, and
Well, there's an open weight class in powerlifting too.
Okay.
But so in any case, even if you're in a weight class, so let's say you're in a 180-pound weight class, right? You want to be as close to 180 as possible. Because I think the weight classes, depending on what federation you are, there's a 160-pound weight class and a 180-pound weight class. It's technically done in kilos, so I'm just doing vague transitions in my head. But if you weigh 161 pounds, you do not make the 160. You're in the 180-pound weight class now because you are above the cutoff.
Which could be at a pretty severe disadvantage because
sucks.
Because then that person, has to compete with somebody who is about 20 pounds heavier than them, who might potentially be able to lift more weight and break, certain records and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So
it is your goal to be, if you're in the 160-pound weight class, you want to weigh 159 to 160 pounds.
Right.
The heavier you are within that weight class, you have a competitive advantage. Simply because mass moves mass. That's physics. That's a question of leverages.
Right. So just to kind of throw it in there, but in combat sports, just like you said, mass moves mass. So if the big guy who's 220 pounds, happens to be up against a person who's 180 pounds, that person is definitely gonna that punch is going to hit a little harder from that person who's 220 pounds.
It's momentum, right? Velocity times mass.
Right.
But, that's just what it is. And there are other sports that also benefit from weight, right? If you're talking about football, there are some positions in football. I don't know jack shit about football. But I imagine if you're playing...
Well, for instance,
the guy who stops the guy from running.
Usually, on the defense side, the linebacker, usually those are bigger individuals on the defense portion of the team to stop individuals from going to get to the other side, right?
So and here's where we want to get to the side of gaining weight that actually doesn't really have much to do with athleticism,
sports,
right? Or sports or anything like that. Why might somebody want to gain weight for health reasons?
So it could be some kind of medical condition that they happen to have trouble losing weight. So that person would see probably some kind of a dietitian, nutritionist to figure out food for this person so that they can gain weight, right? That might even include some kind of resistance training program because their muscle mass might be non-existent, so they would have to do that as well. But just for health reasons, for a person who might have anorexia or something like that, or something more with thyroidism, right, where they have trouble gaining it. Was that hypo or hyper?
Hypo is you have an underactive thyroid. Hyper is you have an overactive thyroid. So people with hyper will probably have an easier time gaining weight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other thing.
So why might you be in a position where you are underweight? Cancer treatments, chemo, very commonly ends up putting people into an underweight kind of body weight. Maybe you do have an eating disorder, right? Anorexia nervosa or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I mean, we don't want to just make it so dark. There are perfectly healthy individuals who just end up being underweight because of a side effect of some medication, right? Maybe they're on a stimulant, perhaps they take Adderall or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially for young kids, right? It may very well end up putting you into an underweight category.
Yep.
How am I gaining weight? And I think you might be better to answer this. How does gaining weight look to somebody who is trying to gain weight for sports versus how does gaining weight look for somebody who is trying to go from underweight to a normal weight category?
I mean, I think a lot of stuff will cross over because it does come down to just their daily food consumption, right? So the amount of calories that they put into your body, their daily habits. Now, I've trained individuals who might have been playing for like high school varsity or whatever, and then in that same day, I'm training somebody who's a skinnier person trying to put on muscle. Like, it just comes down to them understanding nutrition, understanding that they're just not eating enough in the day and that they have to realize that. So then you just work with that individual to figure out foods that person can enjoy, and then, but yeah, they will gain weight over time as long as they have that consistency. So, I mean, calories in, calories out, right? You want to be in that surplus to gain that weight.
Now I know that Chris and I actually disagree on one thing.
I think there's some disagreement, but yeah, let's go ahead.
In the clean bulk and the dirty bulk
Sure.
debate, and let's define that. What qualifies as a dirty bulk?
I mean, a dirty bulk just implies that you get to eat whatever you want. I mean, as long as you're just intaking a fuck ton of calories, from my understanding, that would be a dirty bulk.
So the opposite of that, Chris, what is a clean bulk?
More precise nutrition, so you are paying attention more to your food. Now, you might allow yourself a little bit more, more fats, more carbohydrates, and all that stuff. But the idea of the clean bulk or the dirty bulk is that you are eating a lot more calories. Now the debate is, I think, how many, I think, is what it is. And I think the debate is also, are you gaining muscle faster on an obscene amount of calories than on, having a moderate to just right above what you normally typically will take in? Are you gaining muscle faster? So, I mean, that's where I kind of stand on that,
If you were to, and I think here's where it actually gets a little bit interesting. Let's say we have 3 different clients, Chris.
Sure.
3 different clients. You have a scrawny kid, okay? So somebody who is scrawny.
Yeah.
Okay. Here you have somebody who is average, just the average Joe looking to pick you up as a trainer.
Sure.
And then you have, let's call it a trained individual, somebody who definitely has some sort of lifting, some sort of resistance training under their belt. Peter, we do see your comment. Let me message you. We'll talk, Peter, you and I. We'll talk. So, would you prescribe to any of these individuals a dirty bulk?
No, I mean, like, it really depends on. I just don't like that word. I don't like dirty bulking because it just implies you just eat whatever the hell you want, right? So that's my issue with that specific word. So that, as a professional, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, you know what, you could just go to McDonald's, you could start, smashing, a bag of chips on top of all that, because that's just a poor way to approach that, right? Now, am I gonna say, oh, you can only eat chicken and rice and stuff like that? No. Definitely not, but it's definitely more. There's a lot more nuance to it. I feel like, depending on the individual. So I would say no, none. I wouldn't prescribe dirty bulking to any of these individuals. No.
I would go ahead and tell all of them to dirty bulk.
Oh, please enlighten me on that.
If your goal is to gain muscle, or if you're talking to me, it's probably going to gain strength, I would suggest you eat as much as you can. Because if you're listen, if
no.
you are trying to get into a sport, if you're trying to get
Sure.
into a weight class, if you're trying to do any of that stuff, my advice would change. But if you're just trying to get stronger and bigger, why waste all your time? Why weigh all your meals? That is a massive inconvenience. Actually measuring it out, actually figure.
I'm not even suggesting
like
that. I'm not even suggesting weight. I'm not even saying you have to be precise like that. I'm saying, like, if you tell somebody to eat whatever the hell they want, that person, let's say, who wants to gain muscle, for instance, so they're in my shoes, right? And I've done this before, and I would argue I put on more muscle now, eating pretty moderate, eating probably closer to like 3,000 calories or so. And I put on more muscle now at a steadier pace than when I just ate whatever the hell I wanted. And then the second I started to shrink down, because I want to get lean now, you're probably burning muscle because now you're in a very restrictive diet. So you feel like shit, you're burning muscle, and it's just a bad way to just get to that point. If somebody wants to be lean, right? So I would say the clean bulk, I guess, is something more I would argue for than a dirty bulk, because you are just shoveling unnecessary calories, and especially if it's like super high fatty foods, you're eating like fast foods. So not only that base caloric number, but you're getting those calories from all the fat, and it's a mess, I would say.
I think that's another thing we disagree about. I think calories from fat are they're not nearly as bad as calories from carbs. Nowhere near as bad.
No, I would say carbohydrates more so than, you need fats, but fats are just more calorically dense, right? So if we're still talking about calories in, calories out,
they're more calorie dense, but the thermogenic effect of fat is triple that of carbohydrates. The amount of energy put in to burning a gram of fat is so much greater than the amount of energy it takes to break down a gram of carbs, mostly because fat metabolism in your body is it's all over the place. It's not just one enzyme. There are acids involved, and then there's different amino acids that need to be broken down into different ways, and muscle oxidation and all that other weird stuff. However, I stand by my dirty bulk. I think you are better off doing a dirty bulk clean cut cycle than you are doing a clean bulk, simply because of efficiency and speed. Gain weight quick. Think about it. When you are trying to gain weight, what season are you going to try to bulk? Your winter. You have like 3-4 months.
Yeah, but it's all bro science. So, like, you're not going to gain muscle any faster eating more calories than if you were to eat at a more moderate thing. Like, when we say we have to suggest, like, how many calories are we talking? Are we saying 6,000 calories? Are we like a person who's like 80 pounds at like 25% body fat? Is that person going to eat another 6,000 calories?
How many people can actually eat 6,000 calories in a day?
It's probably pretty easy.
Even me at my fattest, I don't think I exceeded 5,000.
Even like, yeah, okay. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Eating, and I think here is where I go with just eat whatever you want, because you only have 3 or 4 months to do it, right? Most people bulk probably during the winter fall season, and then come spring they go into a cut so they can look good on the damn beach.
I guess, but then you're working even twice as hard, because now you're just trying to burn off all the body fat you just gained from eating a fuck ton of calories.
But you also gained a whole bunch of muscle along with it.
No, you don't. You're gaining it at the exact same rate as if you just ate at a moderate pace.
Yeah, I understand that, but you have 3 months to do it.
Yeah, but do you want to
suffer,
you're gonna gain or do you want to?
So look at this study that overate by 1,000 calories. You gained the same amount of fat mass whether you're doing low protein or not. It's that big protein intake that actually causes the muscle gain. And I think as long as you're eating a whole bunch of protein, you are more than welcome to eat whatever you want.
What I would say, let's say that person was eating 2,000 calories on average. That was their normal intake
I'd say
or
this
whatever.
Is definitely a 3,000 calorie person.
Which is, I would say, even like
above.
depending how old and tall and all that stuff, and how active they are and all that, because there's so many variables, right? And that's why it's so difficult. But I would say I wouldn't advocate for having somebody be like, yeah, just eat whatever the fuck you want. I would say that's bad advice for anybody. I would say even like, but like you mentioned, powerlifting and strongmen and stuff like that. Sure, I guess if you wanna do that, but just for general health reasons, I would say no, definitely not. I would say just eat enough where you have energy, where you're not starving, and you have protein. Your food is balanced, then you'll be all right. I would say then you're gonna gain muscle just as quickly. Just train really hard, you know. Just have the amount of protein, stay hydrated, all that stuff.
Can we meet in the middle?
Sure. I mean,
if you have the calorie expenditure of a fucking monster, I mean, you are like a powerhouse. I mean, you go to the gym, you train weights, you train cardio.
Sure.
Maybe you're like our mutual marathon triathlete friend,
Yeah.
who eats absolute trash. If you actually burn the calories, is there much of a distinction between a dirty bulk and a clean bulk? If you put in the work accordingly.
Definitely. I mean, like if and only then, like those all those things are a thing, then yeah, fine. But even then, like just saying like, yeah, eat whatever you want, it's just bad advice.
I'm gonna edit that. I'm gonna edit that completely. I'm gonna flip your words around, and I'm gonna say, Chris, personal certified trainer, says it's okay, fine, eat whatever you want because it's good.
Just really, just really bad editing.
Just
like obvious.
Obviously, like I don't even mean deep fake. I mean just like, hi, my name is Chris, and I say it's fine to eat whatever you want. Fine.
Like it's just different inflections. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. I don't know. I know my stance. I would say, eat balanced foods. So if you have that protein, because you mentioned how fat reacts and carbs react, but that's typically just on their own in your body. So if you have a balanced meal with carbohydrates, fats, and protein, it's gonna be, it won't act as if it were in your body on its own, right?
Life is short. Listen,
eat whatever
the fuck you want. Chances are, what's the difference if you die tomorrow from the coronavirus, or you die next week from getting hit by a bus, or you die 30 years down the line from a heart attack because you're a fat fuck who doesn't give a shit about what you ate?
I'm even
eat
saying
whatever you want.
Who
gives a shit?
I would say that you could eat whatever you want, but I think it just comes down to just how much, right? Like somebody was like, they'll hear us talking about this and they'll be like, oh, well, they're saying, well, I gotta, eat a certain amount, blah, blah, blah. And they're saying now that, we could eat whatever we want. But yeah, you could have that McDonald's, but you have to also understand, all those other things we mentioned, the are you exercising, or do you deserve eating this 1,200 calorie meal in one sitting? If you eat, like shit and you don't exercise at all, probably not. It's probably not good advice for that person to do that. But like if it's somebody who trains really hard, like for instance, like a marathon runner, like Philip or somebody like that, who's consistently burning calories because of these aerobic, exercises that they're always doing. So they're just burning a fuck ton of calories. Then yeah, that person could probably get away with that. Long-term effect, yeah, I mean, just eat in moderation. Understand that you don't have to restrict yourself with foods. You can allow yourself that stuff, but I would say just don't overdo it, I guess. So eat in moderation.
My dear friends, let's take this opportunity near the end to bridge the two episodes. Today's episode and next week's episode.
Yes. Losing weight next week, huh?
Losing weight next week.
Segue.
It comes down to your relationship with food. And I'd say there are three big relationships with food, right? So there is, do you see food as fuel? As in, food gives you the fuel necessary to build a certain amount of strength or to do a certain amount of activity. Do you see food as a reward? Which means if I do this, then I get to do this. So it's a little bit backwards. You're not seeing the food as fuel. You're seeing the food as a reward.
A pleasurable thing.
Or do you see food as something that you deal with? Do you see food as something that you turn into, which is essentially like a drug? I had a shitty day. I'm going to eat this tub of ice cream.
Right, yeah.
I had a great day. I'm gonna eat this tub of ice cream.
Very
I
common,
think
though. That's very common.
when you're talking about weight gain or weight loss, these three relationships with food, do you see it as fuel, do you see it as reward, or do you see it as something you use to deal with your other shit?
I feel like we can convince people that they could be both of these two things. So being fuel and a reward, because us as human beings, we need energy to survive, right? We need these things to move and do whatever the fuck we do, right? So fuel, I would say, is something that we could all agree on in some instances. Reward is something that we'll probably touch more on in the next episode, because that's a very thin line, depending on what we're specifically talking about. So,
And then the hard one is going to be using food to deal with your shit. And that's my problem.
that's a coping mechanism,
It's a coping mechanism.
and that's very common. A lot of my clients, if somebody's trying to lose weight, shit, like, they have a tough day at work. What do? They go to the comfort food. They get the quick, instant, fast food restaurant. Go Grubhub and order whatever the hell you want, and then that's a
So
thing.
at the end of the day, whether you're gaining weight or losing weight, it really comes down to food, your nutrition, and your relationship with that food. Now, speaking of relationships, I cannot believe